The intended use of this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and guests independently, and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of UpDog Challenge Incorporated, its sponsors, or any other partnered organizations. UpDog Challenge Incorporated does not guarantee the accuracy or reliability of any opinions expressed. In no way should the information provided during the Sweet Spot and UpDog podcast be considered veterinary, medical, legal, or professional advice. At all times, the advice of your personal professional should supersede any information provided, derived, or inferred from listening to this podcast.
Ready, set, go.
Welcome to the Sweet Spot, an UpDog podcast. I'm Andrea Morissette.
And I am Jack Bailey, and we do not have a guest with us today, but we have an amazing topic. What's our amazing topic, Dre?
Freestyle! Why do we love freestyle so much? Okay, we're going to be talking about how to start a freestyle routine. It was one of the questions that we have received, and since we get overly excited about anything freestyle, we jumped right on the opportunity to make an episode that talked about how exactly someone would start a freestyle routine. So how we like to start freestyle routines here at UpDog is playing games. So we're going to talk about how some of our games can build freestyle skills that'll help you to build a freestyle routine. And if you play our UpDog games, then you get to put together all those little game patterns, and then voila, you have like a 90-second to 2-minute freestyle routine just by running game patterns.
And I would say this will probably end up being a part 1, part 2, maybe part 3. So we're going to start today with 3 of our games, and then we'll add on as we go in other episodes. But before we even jump into the games, just like Dre said, both her and I love freestyle. We love talking about it. And this past weekend, we were at a big contest. We had a great time talking about all the nuances and little things and judging and who did this and which moves are we going to steal and all sorts of great conversations around freestyle. And so before we even got started, I just thought it would be interesting to see, like, Dre, why do you like freestyle so much?
That's a good question. Oh, why do I like freestyle so much? I'm gonna give a real answer. Instead of like a this sound good answer, because the answer that is real answer might not sound good, but like
The real answer, because you want to dominate.
not so much winning. Maybe in the beginning, I think. It was more around winning and feeling some like victory or validation for what I was doing because I was coming from it strictly from a sports perspective when I started because I came from disc sports to disc dog. So it was more about the sport than it was about the dog, I think, when I started. But now having been in the sport for 20 years, almost next year will be 20 years. Um, I think my favorite part of freestyle now is it's an opportunity to like be at your full playful self-expression with your dog. And um not that nobody has a say, because we obviously have judges and judges have a say, right? If something's unsafe or it doesn't work or whatever. But it's like it gets to be yours. Because all of our game patterns, like we have suggested ways of running patterns. We have like, people can learn different strategies that other people have come up with. And yes, you can come up with your own strategy, but like freestyle is like this whole, it's like a baby, right? It's got all inside, it's got all kinds of cool, unique elements that are just yours. They're just yours. And so I like the opportunity to create something that is just mine with me and my dog and have an opportunity to perform it. Because I wouldn't say the competitions, because I think I enjoy it more at shows, but the doing of it for people is part of it for me. But I don't like the competing part. Like I would, if I could not ever be judged in judging competitions again, I'd be happy just to do shows. It's the sharing of the joy of freestyle with other people as a creative expression that me and my dogs come up with by ourselves, like in our own creativity. I don't know if that makes any sense to you at all, but and the doing it in front of people is part of it for me that I like really sharing the surprise and the joy of it and the fun of it with kids and families. And when you see more of that at shows, at fairs and festivals and stuff, people have never seen that before and like, wow, the dog does this crazy stuff. I think I get a lot more of my joy from that versus like that I come up with a new difficult move or a new throw and I execute it well at a competition. I get a score. Like I get a certain amount of cookies or payment from that, um, or validation from it, but I think there's more stress and hurt and all that other stuff tied to it more so than what I get out of the competing part of it. So for me, I get my joy from the performing part of it, being able to show that self-expression and share it with people that maybe haven't seen it before or they get inspired by it.
Yeah, and I've said this before, but I feel the same way. I definitely get, a positive marker or kudos or whatever you want to call it by just somebody being like, oh, that throw was really cool that you did with Ferris, or I like that new move that you tried with Remix. You know, I think that a lot of people feel that way, that yes, you can get motivated by your score, but I think that maybe we underestimate the motivation of a positive comment from a viewer. It may not even be a fellow player, just somebody who watched you around.
You
So
can
if
even
you do,
hear from the audience, like a big roar from the audience
right,
when you hit something. It's not from
right.
even from a specific person, just knowing that joy was created from the thing that you just did.
If you're ever watching a freestyle routine and you're like, man, that was really cool when they did that dog catch, or I liked that ending, or whatever it is, like don't keep that to yourself. Like go share it with that person because it'll mean way more than you even know. There
Yep.
were a few people over the weekend that sent me Facebook messages about something in my routine or my routine in general and what they liked about it. And that just like made my day. Like, yeah, it's cool to get the scores and everything as well, but we're showcasing our dogs. We want people to look at our dogs and be like, wow, that was really cool that they're able to do that. It brought some joy to them watching our dogs, and it's really cool to know those things. So if you're
Yeah.
ever at a contest, like, and you think that about somebody's routine or a trick that they did, like, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with that
Yeah.
person.
And I agree, Jack. I had a few people come up to me this past weekend and say that something I did or said made a difference, and that was like the highlight of the week. So, yeah, anytime you can share something nice that a person did or said or something that you liked, it'll definitely bring up the joy vibe. That
Yep.
was a starting question. I wasn't expecting that. That was a good one. Okay, so our first question is what's a freestyle routine, Jack, and what is a freestyle sequence? So let's start by kind of defining the thing that we're talking about. What makes a freestyle routine and what makes a freestyle sequence?
All right, so for folks that maybe don't have as much experience with freestyle, so there are some terms that many freestylers use, and of course, a routine, your freestyle routine is essentially, depending upon the venue that you're playing, like in UpDog, you have 2 minutes, 15 seconds, or less if you're playing level one, but you have a set amount of time to basically showcase what you and your dog can do. And the way you piece all of those things together is called your routine. One of the things that I did not know when I first watched freestyle was I just thought they were just making it up as they went.
Yeah.
Like they just entered the field and was like they didn't have a thought about what they were going to do. They were just kind of jamming with their dog. And it wasn't until I had seen maybe two or three um, competitions where I realized, oh no,
We're doing the same thing over and over
this
again.
is planned out. This is like, they are really like, working the same trick that they did last week or whatever. And that's when I realized, okay, it's not just jamming, it's a routine. Similar to like a gymnastics routine or a figure skating routine that you see. So, first of all, the freestyle routine is made up of however many minutes or seconds that the organization says that you have, and it's what you have planned to do with your dog out there on the field. Now, of course, plans change and routines can be tweaked, but ultimately there is some sort of plan that you've got, some sort of practiced routine that you are attempting to put out there on the field. So that's your freestyle routine. So, Dre, what's a sequence then?
Well, a sequence is part of the routine. So for me, if I was to define a sequence, it's a series of moves done together in flow that exhaust all of the discs that you have in your possession. And then the end of the sequence would be once you're out of discs, you have to go pick up discs again. So you need some way to send your dog to a different space so that they're not just running around next to you while you're picking up discs off the ground. So for me, what defines a freestyle sequence is it can be one or two moves. But it's you do a series of moves together, anywhere maybe from 1 to 10 moves, I would say in general. Not one wouldn't be a sequence, two, right? 2 or 3 moves to 10 moves maybe could be a sequence. And if you have enough discs, maybe you have only 5 discs and you do 10 moves and you're swapping discs between the dog. At the end of that, whenever you're done with your moves, throw your last disc, your dog goes and chases that, and then you get to run around and pick up the discs you have. So I would call that one sequence, whatever the conglomeration is of all those tricks until you have to go pick up more discs for your next sequence of tricks.
So I think it's safe to say then, to use this terminology, your freestyle routine is comprised of sequences.
Yes.
And I would say typically a beginner routine, a 90-second round, you probably have 4 sequences, perhaps maybe 5, depending on if they're short. Um, so you're just looking at creating 3 to 5 sequences to get your first beginner freestyle routine going. Which brings us to how do we utilize what I am learning when I go out and I play UpDog and I'm playing the games? How can I utilize what I'm learning or the pattern that I see in a game to build a sequence? So we're going to talk about 3 games in particular today. We're going to talk about Spaced Out, Time Warp, and Four-Way Play. And we are going to use each of those as the foundation for a sequence.
Great idea.
And so as we talk, we'll kind of go through those. And like I said, there's way more onion to peel here, but we're going to keep it very short today. We're going
Do our
to
best to, anyway. We get chatty sometimes.
right. Well, short is
Relative,
short compared to what it could be.
subjective.
Exactly. So we'll talk about those 3, and we'll add to this series of podcasts as we go with some of the other games along the way. So first of all, I don't know that there is a exact reason for the order of these games, but we're just going to talk to you about the 3 games, and I think we've placed Spaced Out as a first one to talk about. So Dre, in Spaced Out, that's that game where you're standing at one of the areas that are marked off with the arc. You know, I roll the dice, I step out onto the field, and I have to throw to the spaced out zones.
Yep.
What type of a sequence could be developed from playing Spaced Out?
Well, so I know we have other games coming up, and some of the sequences that we have on the spaced out list are also on the other games lists. So when I was thinking about spaced out, I was specifically thinking of the shapes category in our judging, where we're looking to create different patterns and shapes, and I would create kind of an arc. So when I think about spaced out, I think about creating an arcing pattern where I can kind of go down the line and then pull the dog on a curve back around. So that's what I was thinking when I was thinking spaced out. It would be a showcase of a shape. That would be an arcing shape around the field as you work down the zone. So as a left-handed player, if I was on the left-hand side of the field, I would go down the line and then I would go around to the further zones around there, and it would create this kind of loop. Because the games that we're going to be talking about later can also create the same patterns that this game creates. So I would kind of save those for those games because I thought this one would create a cool kind of arcing pattern.
And would you say, so when I'm thinking about Spaced Out, I know different people play it differently, but ultimately, if you're playing Spaced Out and getting um, a pretty high score, your dog is working away from you at a distance.
Mhm.
And so there are freestyle sequences where you want to showcase that your dog can work away from you. So what we mean by that is your dog is catching a disc and not returning to you after each catch of the disc. They're staying
Right.
out away from you. And like in Dre's example, maybe the dog is arcing from one corner of the field to the other and making multiple catches away from the handler without
Oh,
having to come back.
yeah. So instead of going out, coming back, going out, coming back, going out, coming back, the dog would catch, 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 catch. So kind of like a circular or an arcing pattern around. And what Jack is alluding to is if the dog doesn't come back in, we can run different distance patterns out there, either back and forth or on a curve to show that the dog has the ability to work at a distance from the handler. It's actually, if you keep the dog busy, it's not that hard to keep them out there. Like if you're throwing the next one pretty quickly, the dog stays out there because there's another disc coming out there. But in general, when you start doing some distance work, it could be a challenge to get the dog to stay out there and not come back in because they're patterned so much when we first start playing to just go out and bring the disc back, go out and bring the disc back. So I think this is a really important exercise for players that are interested in getting into freestyle to be able to have the dog comfortable staying at a distance, but still communicating with the handler from that distance instead of having to come all the way in to communicate. And because some dogs will just get lost out there. They'll be like, okay, I'm staying out there. Oh, there's a butterfly. Or I'm gonna go sniff this spot, or there's a person over there, or whatever. So if we can get the dog to be at 10 or 15 or 20 yards away from us, turns, hold their position, and look at us for the next cue, that's a really important skill that we can showcase to a judge. And that could be showcased in spaced out.
And when you think about the different throwing zones of spaced out too, Jerry was talking about shapes. Like depending on which throw zone you're throwing from, your
Right.
shape's going to be different. I know one of the things that we do when we talk about how to get a higher score on spaced out, not related to freestyle, but I'll bring it back to freestyle, is we go to each one of the throw zones and I have people just look, all right, now you're at throw zone number one. Look at the zones. What makes sense for a pattern here? What makes sense for your dog's flow? Some
Mhm.
dogs like to flank out. Some dogs like to run more linear. So like you have to kind of think like what shape makes sense based upon where I'm standing and where the zones are.
And how your dog
So
moves.
exactly, and how your dog is moving. So the shapes that one person might make out on that field might be different depending on upon those factors. So I would say if you're using spaced out to try to develop a freestyle sequence, try out some of the different zones. Maybe the four zone works better for you, and that idea of like maybe back and forth, kind of a zigzag pattern, or maybe one or five with the arcing pattern that Dre was talking about work good. So there's kind of a there's kind of multiple sequences. You could make multiple sequences out of spaced out just depending on the different shape that you're making.
Do a star pattern. We could do triangles. There's really like, I mean, I wouldn't say a star pattern might not be the most effective way, but if you have a dog that doesn't circle well and they cut back like a cattle dog type or Malinois type, that's going to drive back really hard. It's possible that a star pattern might work better for you because your dog needs to run more and you need more time to be able to get your disc ready. Like if you have a really fast dog, you might need your dog to have more running space and time because you just need more time to be able to throw.
All right, so now freestyle Dre is all about fancy throws. Not all about, but that's a big piece of it, right? Is I want to showcase my dog's ability to catch fancy throws, my ability to throw fancy
To throw
throws.
fancy throws.
So like I don't do that in spaced out. So how do I take this sequence that I've built with spaced out and now like where do my fancy throws come in?
Well, for me, and if I'm working at a distance for these throws, I'm going to choose my throws for a pattern based on the way the disc is spinning. So I'm going to say that again. Okay. So if I'm going to be doing, let's say I'm going to be doing my arc pattern, because that's what I talked about earlier. I'm just going to be throwing in a zone in this kind of arcing pattern. I'm a left-handed player. So my backhand throw is going to fade left to right. That works really well for outside throws. But once I get to the right-hand side here, I'm going to want my disc spinning the other way so that it engages the dog from a different angle with the way the disc fades. So I'm going to pick my throws based on which way the disc spins because I want the disc fading towards the dog when they try to catch it.
So if you were building this sequence and you like let's say I was throwing from the one zone
Mhm.
and I was kind of doing an arc like this, right? And
Mhm.
I was kind of having my dog do an arc. And I my dog learned that pattern of that arc with non fancy
Right,
throws
right,
because I want my dog to learn that pattern and I want my dog
right.
to be successful. I don't want to go out there and throw like four crazy
And
throws
have
that
them
like
drop them all, right?
right, and then they drop them all. My dog's not learning a pattern. I'm not really being feeling successful. Um, so maybe I could just do I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm going to throw this out there. What I would do is I would only change one of those throws at a time. So
Yeah,
like I unless I'm really good and I feel like I can change more than one at a
yeah.
time because my fancy throws are also on the money.
Mhm.
But if your fancy throws are not on the money and you're not able to deliver them, work on the one that Dre's talking about. Like, all right, I
Yeah,
want to throw this different throw that's going to spin differently and it's going to land in this zone nicely. So I'm going to throw normal backhand, sidearm or whatever that new throw
yeah.
is, and backhand.
Yeah,
And
and
you,
I like to strategically place that throw too, also. So think about, is it like, if it's a finger flick, this one where it takes a long setup, that one's really smart to do first because it takes a little extra setup and you don't want to have to execute the fidget part of it while the dog's running. But if it's a throw where you need the dog to be a little bit like calmer in the pattern, you might want to do it last. So you can get yourself some success for these first throws and get the dog some catches. And if you're feeling confident, then you could throw your fancy throw at the end. So test it out when you're practicing it, what position you want to put the fancy throw that helps with your brain being able to handle the stress of executing it under pressure. Because you can practice all you want in your yard. Once the timer starts, adrenaline kicks in, fight or flight kicks in, we get all shaky. You're going to be thinking about this sidearm more than you're going to be thinking about anything else, right? So if to avoid like making a bad throw because you're overthinking it, try when you're practicing it to put it in the place that gives your brain the most calm time to execute the throw. And then as you get that one memorized, then you can add another throw and another throw and another throw.
and by the way, your spaced out sequence could be ready for competition with absolutely no fancy throws.
Yeah,
Like
just
you can do it just with backhands. Get a nice shape, get success from your dog, have your dog catching in flow, and you'll be getting points in those areas. So don't feel like, well, I can't do the freestyle routine yet because I only have one fancy throw or I don't have any fancy throws. Like you can put that
yeah.
into your freestyle sequence right away just with backhands. And as you become better at it and your dog learns a pattern, you get more confident, then you can add in those fancy throws.
Yep. And then because okay, so you got to really think, you're trying to remember a whole freestyle routine here. That's like a 90-second to 2 minute, 2 minute and 15-second long dance, like full of dance moves and coordinated dance movements. That's a lot to remember. And if you're trying to remember that under stress, it's even harder to remember. So at first, just try and get your 90 seconds, just try and get on the field with certain patterns, with throws that you feel confident you can make. As a judge, I would always rather see a well thrown backhand than a wonky alternate throw that maybe puts the dog at risk or
Whereas,
isn't delivered well, isn't
right.
it delivered to be catchable. So yes, we do want to encourage people to use alternate throws, but it's not an end all be all for freestyle, and it shouldn't prevent you from taking the freestyle field. We'd be perfectly happy seeing somebody take the freestyle field and run a whole bunch of patterns with just backhands delivered to optimize the dog's athleticism, and that would be a great showcase. And then what I would put in the notes for that team is start to add in some alternate throws, right? And then you add in one or two, and then you focus on those. But at first, you're really just going to need to focus on remembering the patterns, remembering the routine, and feeling comfortable doing it in front of people.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's move on. We got one sequence down. I'm ready to go to my next sequence. Our next game that we were going to talk about is Time Warp.
Yeah.
And
We actually use this pattern a lot in freestyle, the time warp pattern. We see it a lot. So time warp is our speed game, where we're looking to get a catch in one of three zones. So zone one, zone two, zone three. And then they have an opportunity for a sweet spot shot again in zone 3. So what this looks like is directional movement in a straight line. So the skill that the dog needs, or the skill that the dog would be showing to a judge, is that they can run on a working flank and drop the disc that they're carrying while they're running to pursue and catch another disc, and then do it again, drop and pursue another disc. Now, if you're just starting in UpDog or in Disc Dog and you play Time Warp, you're probably throwing and the dog's coming back, throwing, the dog's coming back, and throwing, the dog's coming back. What we would look for in freestyle here is 1, 2, 3 in a row, or 1, 2, 3, 4 in a row. And 4 in a row is hard because the fourth one's going to be pretty far down the field. So to get that in a straight line, 3 drops in a row, everything pretty coordinated, it's pretty tricky. So you see 1, 2, 3 quite a lot in Disc Dog. I think that 1, 2, 3, 4 we do not see very often. And I think really the only time that's like acknowledged as a pattern is in USDDN for their directional movement. That is considered a directional movement pattern. The one, two, three,
And
four.
honestly, if you're just starting out, 1-2 is fine too.
Yeah.
Um,
Getting your dog to drop on the run is great.
Yeah, anytime that you can have multiple discs in the air at the same time, it creates a little bit of drama for the people viewing. Like, oh my gosh, the dog hasn't even caught that one disc and the other one's in the air already. You know,
Yep.
are they gonna be able to drop and get that next one? This is another one where literally you could just take time warp, your regular time warp
Plug
game
it right
with
into the,
backhand
yes.
and just turn it into a sequence.
Yep.
You've got uh, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, and
And you can make it in a straight line, or some people do, because it's easier for the dog to catch, do a little bit of a zigzag, slightly to the left or slightly to the right, which you can do with either alternating throws with different releases, like a sidearm spin and a backhand spin, or you can do it with one of Jack's signature approaches is using Anheuser. So that will make I will make it easier for the dog to catch if the disc is to one side or the other while the dog is running. So for the dogs that are still learning to track on a line like that, you can do that 1, 2, 3 with a slight disc to the side of it, and it'll make it a lot easier for your dog to catch at first. It's just really difficult for dogs to catch with a disc right over the top of their head.
and with time warp, we're doing it 0 to 10, 10 to 20, and then beyond 20 yards. But
Mhm.
literally, you could do it closer. You could, like, all three of those catches could be within
10
15
yards.
yards.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just the idea of the quick multiple. The 1, 2, 3 is an idea for a sequence. And just like what we talked about with spaced out, once your dog learns that pattern, then you can add in a fancy throw somewhere.
Yep.
As long as you can lay that fancy throw in a very similar location to what you're laying that backhand throw, your dog doesn't care how you throw it. Your dog
Right.
probably doesn't even know how you throw it because it's a multiple. It's just surging ahead for the next disc. Whether
Yep.
you throw that under your leg or upside down. By the way, upside down's an easy transition one to
Yeah.
do. Like, your dog doesn't care. So you can even practice your fancy throws without your dog. In fact, you should. And then you bring your dog back into it. They know the pattern. They just are catching those discs in those locations where they're used to catching them.
Yep.
Um, I don't know if you do this, Dre. Do you call out like I do? I definitely do it for time warp. I don't do it for spaced out necessarily because there's a lot of variations in spaced out. But in time warp, I actually, when I come to the line with my dogs, I say the words time warp.
Hmm.
Like, so that they kind of know, just like I call out the name of my sequences in my freestyle round,
Right.
I say time warp, and my dogs begin to know, okay,
What pattern
I
they're
know what
running.
this is. I know what pattern we're running. And so if you do use the name of one of a game like that, or you could use the same thing when you are naming your freestyle sequence so that your dog knows, okay, this is the same thing as running that game.
Yep. Bridging behavior. I love that. Yeah. It gives the dog an idea of what they're doing. Makes it easier, better communication. I love it. Yep.
All right, so I've got a spaced out sequence. I've got a time warp sequence. We said four-way play is our third one that we're going to talk about. And I don't know about you, but I feel this is the one that you can get even more sophisticated with.
Yeah, I mean, four-way play was one of our was our first. Was that the first game we drew on a napkin? I think it was the first one, or was it fragility? I think it was four-way play that was first. Anyway,
I don't know, but I mean, those were the first
point
three
being,
games were throw and go, four-way play, and fragility. So.
versatility, yeah. Point being that there's just so much we can do with that game. This is the game I was thinking of earlier for directional movement because you could do literally any directional movement here except for the time warp, one, two, three, four. You could do a zigzag pattern. You could do an around the world pattern. You can even do X patterns. You could do triangles. You could do stars. You could do anything, really, depending on how your dog moves around four-way play. So for the four-way play field, there's four zones on each corner of the sweet spot. So we have the sweet spot in the middle, and off of each corner is a zone, one, two, three, and four. And you just got to score a catch in each zone, and that locks out the zone. You got to catch one in each four, and then each zone opens back up again. And you want to try and go around as many times to score. So in this pattern, you see a lot of team movement. Like when you watch people play this, you'll see the handler knows exactly where their disc is going to be left based on the pattern they've designed with the dog. So if they're doing what we call our Z pattern, where they go across and then cross the field and across like that, the handler is cueing the dog to drop the disc at some specific spot, and they're counting on the dog to be down here when they're picking up that disc so they can meet the dog over here. So it's really like I think it's the best example of our team movement out of all of our games. Like how we can really plan how disc management and moving with the dog, setting the dog up to move to a certain space while we are moving to a different space. I think it's so default for us to just move to meet the dog, and the dog's default is to move to meet us. But in four-way play, it really is more like a symphony. It's like I'm going to send the dog here and move here to get to here so that we can meet at the same time. And I think that opens up a lot of opportunity for a bunch of different patterns. So I would say all my directional movement suggestions would come from four-way play.
And four-way play, at least to me too, is it allows for closer movement as well. Some of these closer things, like maybe
Yeah.
some of the tricks that you have been working on with your dog, like a flip or something. You could have a flip into zone one,
Then
and then
overhand wrist flick into zone three.
yeah. So like these little trick things that you're doing a leg over. I can do a leg over into zone four or whatever. Like these are the things that you can kind of link together in four-way play, in a four-way play game. Uh, don't think that, okay, I've got to have this big sweet spot 10 by 10 square in the middle, and the zones are way out here, so the catches have to be out here. You could shrink it in. Like, so you could pretend like the sweet spot's a 3 by 3 square instead of a 10 by 10 square.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so your stuff is happening more closely, more close up with you. But just like Dre said, it's all of that handler movement with the dog that is setting the dog up for the next catch that is really important in this type of a sequence, in the four-way play sequence.
And the disc management, I feel like in this particular game is like you could really master disc management strategy in four-way play. The other games, especially the zone games, and greedy, spaced out, because there's so much movement, like you can have an idea where things are going to be, but stuff gets crazy sometimes. And stuff gets crazy with four-way play. But I say in general, people know exactly where their discs are going to be with four-way play, and they strategize an exact plan of where their discs need to be for four-way play. So it's a bit more like the handler has intentional disc. It doesn't, the game doesn't work at a high level without high level disc management.
And so both Dre and I have mentioned disk management before, just for people that maybe haven't heard that before or whatever. Disk management is, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory.
Managing your discs.
We are managing the number of discs that we have in our hands ready to go.
Yeah.
Earlier, when we were talking about spaced out, it was, and sequences, we were talking about all of a sudden I have no disc left, or maybe one disc left, and I have to kind of throw a longer toss out for my dog so that I have time to pick up the disc,
Right.
which I totally see as the strategy for disc management in, say, the spaced out sequence, because your dog's far away from you, the discs are now far away from you, you're going to need to move in order to get to those discs. But in the
Yep.
game of four-way play, like Dre is describing, if you watch people play four-way play, very infrequently do they have no discs in their hand.
Yep.
They're picking up discs as they go,
There they go. Yep.
and they are strategizing as to knowing where those discs are. So it's a great game to begin to start that process with your freestyle game. You should have, well, let's just put it this way, not you should have. You will get a higher disc management score if in some of your sequences you never run out of discs. Like
Yeah.
you are picking up as you go. That
Yep.
can't happen in all of your sequences just because of the distance that you are away from your discs. But this type of a sequence, like the four-way play sequence, is a great way to showcase that to the judges. Like, hey, I can pick up as I go. I'm being strategic about where my dog is dropping discs, and that allows me to throw more than however many discs you started with.
Right. Yep. Yeah, I really love four-way play. It's my favorite teaching game. It's the game that I go to in seminars every time, to teach people how to play UpDog games or how to drop on a flank or how to catch multiple discs in a row or like any of those things. It's a super useful game. So if there's any game to try first, I would recommend trying four-way play over throw and go for sure as a first game. You're gonna find lots and lots of throw and go type games in the sport. And if you don't mix up the pattern from a single retrieve game, that can actually be detrimental to your development in freestyle. So if you are playing single disc retrieval games like Throw and Go or Toss and Fetch League, anything like that, I would recommend as soon as you can to get into some sort of game type play that has multiple discs and a different pattern.
Okay, so we've put together three sequences. I now have a time warp sequence, a four-way play sequence, and a spaced out sequence. I guess my final question here is like, is there a right way or a wrong way to like piece these together? Which one comes first? Which one should I close with? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Ooh, I have ideas about that. Okay, cool. So I'm thinking from a judge's chair that I have to watch, I don't know, anywhere from 25 to 100 freestyles today. And it gets like monotonous. As fun as it is to watch freestyle, after you watching 20 some teams or 15 or 25 or 50 teams or whatever it is, you see some of the same stuff. Your brain can tune out a little bit. So, how I like to recommend people to set up their freestyle is in their first set. And by the way, your first set should be your most practiced, your most comfortable, your most successful. Because when you go out there, you're going to be nervous. And if you don't have 100% confidence that you can execute that set, it's not going to go well. Also, in your first set, I would recommend putting something really cool and exciting, something unique, your best trick, your favorite trick, whatever your dog looks best doing in your very first set. Because when you go out there, you're making a first impression in your first 10 seconds with those judges. If you come out there and you're just throwing a backhand throw and then throw another backhand throw, that judge is like, whoop, not expecting a whole lot from that routine. Now, that doesn't mean the judge isn't going to watch your whole routine, but first impressions make a difference. So in your first set, I would put whatever your coolest pattern is or your coolest move or the best expression of your dog leaping. I would do that one first. If that's an inside set, I would then go to a throwing set just to break it up. So I don't like doing a whole bunch of running and then a whole bunch of inside stuff. I like to do like inside and then running and then inside and then running and then inside. And what that shows is that the dog can go from arousal to cognitive thought and control to arousal to cognitive thought and control. So if you want to get really in depth with it, that's how I would set up my freestyle is I would put my coolest pattern first. And then if that's an inside set, I would move to some running pattern then. So maybe spaced out or time warp to get into a 1, 2, 3, and then bring back in if you didn't use spaced out yet, then do a different pattern for your spaced out. And that would be your first sequence. Four-way play, time warp, spaced out.
So I don't think there's a wrong way necessarily.
Right.
Like there's a wrong order, because there's lots of ways that we could kind of like think about this. But I like what Dre said about beginning with something that is your most practiced sequence because I know I get nervous out there and I want to have success right away. If I go out there and my first two throws are misses, I lose confidence. My dog loses confidence, blah, blah, blah. So they love that. And then I think I would do exactly what Dre said. I'd start with four-way play. I think what I might do is switch spaced out. Like I think I would do four-way play spaced out and then time warp. And the reason that I would like time
Exciting at
warp
the
at the
end.
end is it's kind of a cool closer
Yeah,
when
it's exciting.
time runs out and maybe there's a long disc in the air still
Sure.
as time expires and the judges and everybody are like, "Ooh, will the dog catch the final disc?"
Yep.
Create some drama and like it's kind of I like that as a closer.
I
But
like your
like I
idea
said,
better.
there's not a wrong answer here, but
Yeah. One thing to also think about, depending on your dog, dog's age, dog's fitness, is you want to think about how much exertion is happening and when it's happening. So, like for example, Magic Dragon, one of my main freestyle dogs, is a micro dog, so he's a little dog, and he overheats really, really easily. He's from like a fly ball breeding, so he puts 150% of his energy out right away. And so if I don't manage his exertion and running through the round, that at the end of the round, he doesn't have any gas left. So if you have a dog that like gets hot really easily or has a heavy coat or maybe has a little extra weight on them and they're not really fit yet, or they don't really love a lot of long running or they have short little legs, you might want to think about how much running you have in your routine, where to put it or spread it out so that the dog doesn't get completely gassed in the first minute of the routine, or you don't put all that running at the end of the routine when maybe they're already pretty tired from the first half. So I kind of like to sprinkle out the running, and then you can also adjust, like we were talking about with time warp. If you end with time warp and maybe you have a dog that does get tired, you can always make it a little bit shorter. So you still have the excitement of the 1, 2, 3, but maybe the dog doesn't have to run 50 or 60 yards for the last throw.
and I think as you practice these things too, you'll begin to see what throws, what tricks your dogs get fired up for, and which ones they'll do, but they're also okay not doing.
Mhm.
Um,
Or they just don't want to chase them. They're just like, I hate that
right.
throw, stop throwing it. And they just lay down.
Like for me, I know any longer toss that I throw out there for Ferris, it doesn't matter if he's tired, he's going to go for it. Yet if it's like, say, a big vault, I want to put that towards the beginning of my round because I want him fresh and his legs to be nice and strong, not fatiguing towards the end of the round. So, like, different dogs, I think, would be different because I would answer that question differently if I was playing
Yeah.
Spice.
Magic and Capiche are different. Capiche
Yeah.
has too much drive, so I actually have to run the crap out of her at the beginning of her routine, so she has a brain. And if I did that with Magic, I wouldn't have a dog at the end. So
Yeah.
they're very different in regards to exertion. She needs more exertion and he needs less.
So as you're practicing these different sequences, pay attention to what your dog's doing, pay attention to their drive. Is it waning? Are they excited about that move? And you can use that to kind of figure out the order in which you might want to place things.
Yep.
All right, so everybody's got themselves a freestyle routine
It's
now,
that.
three sequences, and you're ready to go. You probably almost got 90 seconds or at least 75 seconds with these three sequences. So we want to see you out on a freestyle field soon with your new
Yes.
freestyle routine. And we will come back to this type of episode again. I'm sure we will have a part two, probably a part three, and hopefully be able to get you an entire 2-minute routine based solely on our games. Right, Trey?
Yeah, I just thought far out would be fun too.
I'm
Just
going
like
to throw
one
85
super
yards.
bomb at the end. It's like 70-yard throw at the end. Yeah, so
Actually, I
it's
really kind
fun.
of like some I don't know if you noticed in one of Kira's rounds, she started at one end of the field and
Worked
she
all the
threw
way
a long
down.
bomb all the way to the other end of the field and then met her dog in the middle and started jamming. I
That's what
thought
my
that was a
that's what my
really
capiche routine is. That's how it opens, except for she blew off her vault this past weekend. It didn't work, but that's what I do. I do a vault and then a long throw as far as I can all the way across the field because she needs to run like 80 yards before she can play. And she
yeah.
just doesn't have a brain otherwise, you know? So yeah, there's all kinds of different approaches and strategies to how to get your dog dialed in for freestyle. So
Yep.
many fun patterns.
All right, guys, we will see you next time. But in the meantime,
Be kind to each other.
and be kind to your animals. We'll see you next time on The Sweet Spot.
Anyway, we get chatty sometimes.